This is George Buckley here in Bonaire at the landfill, which has become a controversial area of late. Over the years, Bonaire has done a superb job at collecting material, recycling as best they can. We're a small island at the southern end of the Caribbean, and so it's not easy. Problem in intervening 25 years, the number of visitors has gone way up. Cruise boats now come regularly. The population of the island since 10 has greatly increased as we developed a wider relationship with Europe, and as a result, our humble little landfill is now way overburdened, way out of date. As you can see in the back, we're now digging up valuable land to try to get what we can of soil and coral rock to cover up the trash. Fires have started on a regular basis year over year, and these are putting off noxious fumes of a very questionable quality. And so there's a lot to be done here. For one, immediately, we've got to test people in 3 zones around the landfill, adjacent to it, further out, and then appurtenant to that, to look at what's happening as the drift of the stuff that's burning goes further and further inland. We know, for instance, that burning material has great numbers of fine particulates, and these fine particulates can go deep into the recesses of the lungs, coating and infecting the alveoli. Normally, larger particles get caught in the mucus of the throat, the nose, the bronchial tubes, and we cough that out, or naturally it comes up on its own. The deep stuff tends to stay there. We saw this over the years with smoking studies, that the people that smoked and inhaled deeply were the ones that had the worst problems with cardiovascular disease, with lung disease. There seems to be an increase in lung and cardiovascular disease in those living around the landfill. A big study needs to be done on that. Blood tests, lung tests, heart tests. There also needs to be air pollution studies done on a regular basis here, looking at what the exposures are when there's a fire going on. Some of the fires have started burning underground, and they're very, very hard to put out and require that there's further disturbance. The fact is, most landfills of the world are out of date, out of use, and closed. And if they're not, there should be a plan to close them. That here in Bonaire would be a very expensive and time-consuming proposition, but the conversation has to start. It has to start now, in 2024, so that through the incoming years, we can work on turning the site into actually something good for the land of Bonaire. We've done that in the United States regularly. In Boston Harbor, with an island that used to be dangerous and ugly and was a trash pit, is now a beautiful area that you can go and visit. And so we would hope that a plan can be made for this. Years ago, I did a study here on battery disposal and found that although they were collecting them, they had no way to get rid of them off island. They were sitting in a bucket full of water from rain and ready to explode probably. And so we've got to really do a trash study here. What is our trash stream made up of? Where does it come from? How much is there? How much does it rise and fall with the cruise boat season? Can we increase the already superb effort that is done by the island at collecting recyclables, that making them available? Can we have more gift houses where people can bring things that are gently used, that could be fixed or repurposed? And the hidden question here that has to be studied is PFAS. These chemicals that are superb chemicals in the sense that for decades they've kept water and oil and grime and grease from sticking to things like luggage and clothing and carpets and fire gear. The problem is that PFAS shed toxic molecules, and it's not just one variety of PFAS, but hundreds. And as we've seen over the years, the concern is rising like this. Our first statewide PFAS conference just before COVID, Massachusetts, had 50 or 100 of us for half a day. The one just after COVID had a couple hundred of us for all day. The upcoming one is 2 days with several hundred of us. That's how important this problem is, and it's pervasive. At first we thought it was just what people picked up in their hands and breathed in and got from their clothes, but then we found they were tracking it home. Then we found it was in the trash. Then we found it was in the air. Then we found it got up into the air and got into the ocean. Then it was in runoff. In other words, PFAS are everywhere. Every place we study in the United States, we find PFAS. Some places we study, like well water, it's at almost toxic or at toxic levels. So besides just studying the PFAS, where is it? What happens when stuff burns and it gets airborne? Is it in the water? Is it in people? More tests, more blood work. This is expensive. I would suggest that they work with the universities in Holland and for instance, the university at Harvard, the School of Public Health, the Chance School of Public Health, get others involved, active here, who are A, air pollution experts, B, trash management experts, C, health experts that can look at the health effects of this. There may need to be special clinics set up to help people deal with the health effects of this now and in the future. And so what was a small, friendly little landfill that worked fine for decades is now a potentially very dangerous aspect of Bonaire. And so this is the dark side of the wonderful green-blue environment of Bonaire, and it's getting darker by the day in terms of its environmental impacts, potential health impacts on the local people. And the local people that live here are the ones that have the most impacts from this. So we've really got to get everybody together on this island and work to begin the process to close this landfill, to begin the process to clean it up, begin the process quickly to start testing for particulates in the air, in the water, in the people around here, look at their health, and then start testing on the island for PFAS. These chemicals that are used wonderfully to keep water and oil and grease off things, but have an extremely dark side because they persist almost permanently in the environment and they shed molecules hourly. So anyway, from Bonaire, this is George Buckley talking about the dark side of things here on this lovely island of ours. Bonaire is not alone in all this. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, the United States had what you see behind me by the thousands. Over the intervening 40 years, with the help of the Environmental Protection Agency and others, they've closed most of these landfills. What you see behind me today is an artifact. It's an ancient thing. It's like a fossil. We shouldn't have those on planet Earth today. You can actually see some of them from space. But while Bonaire has done great things with its reefs, with its waters, with its parks, this has fallen behind on us. That happens as a small community or an island grows and loses track of one particular thing. Think of what's behind me as a potential giant solar park, as a potential giant nature area, as perhaps a large wind field, one of the new energies of the future perhaps. Bonaire has to start thinking 10, 20, 30, 40 years ahead. When I landed here in 1976 to see Captain Don Stewart and dive and study land snails of all things, as well as corals, I didn't realize what the future held for Bonaire or me. I've seen great things on this island, particularly with its people. We preserved Klein Bonaire, we've protected it. But there are things that, as time passes, we've got to pay more attention to, and landfills are one of them. The potential is great, and the risk is great if we don't do something. Yes, there are sunk costs, but when you think of the cost of health, when you think of the cost of continuing this way of doing business, it's just not tenable, not acceptable. And so as people come together, there needs to be lots of conversations about how are we going to do this. Certainly Holland and others can help guide us. A lot of our visitors to this island are retired experts in waste management that don't even know this might be a problem. And so we've got to reach out and ask them, like we did with Klein Bonaire and like we did with other things, give us some help here, give us some ideas here. It's a solvable solution, but it's got to have a lot of attention quickly.